On this ITAV, oh goodness gracious, every processor you know is toast. So we'll talk about that. Also talk about Extron's new Python programming language. All that and more next on ITAV.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ITAV, episode 13, recorded Friday, January 26, 2018. Big, scary internet.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Utalogy.
This is the ITAV show, the look at the combination of IT and AV in the audiovisual industry. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to talk about all things IT and AV. First and foremost, my buddy, pal, and webmaster extraordinaire. His name is Bradford Ben, and he is an indispensable industry icon. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you this fine-filled morning?
Doing well. Also with us is Derek Jonkas. Derek works for Extron Electronics, an underwriter for AVNation. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Great to be here. Thank you.
And last but not least, a man that just another brother that I've had for too many years. He is an IT professional by way of AV. Before that, he was an IT. I don't know what the heck you do. His name is
all right. I don't either.
His name is Michael Drainer, and he has his own IT integration firm. How are you?
Doing well.
All right, so let's kick this off here. First and foremost, the story we're going to start with is one that we haven't covered yet this year, and it's something I want to break down. It's Meltdown and Spectre, and if you haven't heard of Meltdown and Spectre yet, you may have been not paying attention to IT news, but here's the basicness of it. For about the last 20 years or so, every processing chip made has a vulnerability. And the best headline I saw on this was the advice was to throw away all of your computers and wait for 3 years for them to fix this issue. Part of the reasons for that is I've learned over the years in talking with manufacturers and talking with chip makers is the first time you run silicone, that entire batch is toast. So it's really the second or third run that you're really going to get any useful chips out of. To get there, though, you have to design it. And you have to quality assurance it, and you have to do all these other things. So you're looking at about 3 years before a newly designed processor comes into play. Bradford, I'm going to start with you on this because you used to work for a manufacturer. When it comes to these processors, and these processors are in a lot of the stuff that we put into our systems, how big of a deal is this, and what is it that the integrators can do to not protect ourselves necessarily, because it doesn't sound like we can, but to mitigate some of the issues?
So it's a pretty big deal. The company I worked for, Harman, we made products that were both Android and Linux based. I know that other manufacturers do Linux products or Python products or all these great things, which we'll talk about, because these chips are ubiquitous at this point. You have a toothbrush. It has a Intel chip in it, probably if it's one of those electric ones. Biggest thing that they can do to mitigate the risk, don't connect it to the big, scary World Wide Web internet. This goes back to the whole security thing of how do you keep yourself secure? You physically separate from things. The problem is, as you said, it's going to be 2 to 3 years before a true fix is going to come out because they've had a whole bunch of problems with the patches they've done. And it's going to impact everyone. But the risk is, I think, more to the high-value clients than to us, like, New York Stock Exchange, because they don't use computers at all. But I do think that...
He's being sarcastic.
Yes, I'm being very sarcastic. No. But I would say that, the basic idea that I've been preaching for a long time is if it doesn't need to connect to the internet, don't. Because that'll be your first line of defense. Someone has to physically be in your building and connected to your network then in order to use the exploit. And for a lot of our products, AV products, if we're talking about a switcher and they can hack that Intel core or that AMD core or that, I forget the third brand, sorry.
The ARM processors.
The ARM, thank you. What are they going to know? That you're switching video. And even if you can capture Dante or streams like that, that's an issue. But it's also, they're going to go after the VoIP phones first. The fact that Dante is not encrypted and other transports aren't encrypted becomes a whole nother thing. But the idea is just physically separate your network. It's going to be the best line of defense you have. The other thing is be careful on the patches. Everyone laughs at me because I say I never install .o software, and I always wait 30 days minimum. Just because a patch is released, don't get patch happy. Wait 30 days to see if it's actually a valid patch, because one of the big problems with Spectre and Meltdown is Intel has made mistakes. AMD has made mistakes. ARM has made mistakes. And so they're patching and repatching and unpatching and then patching again. And this is one of those things where it's a base layer problem. It's like having a house where you forgot to put concrete in your basement cinder blocks. So it's a pretty big problem. This is also going to impact everything, even virtualized equipment. So it's something to be aware of. Like I said, my big thing is physically separate, and your risk gets infinitesimal, vanishingly small.
Well, and really quickly to Bradford's point about the virtualized equipment, let's be clear here, and this is an old joke in the IT world, that there is no cloud; it's just somebody else's computer, right? Virtualized machines are there's still a processor there somewhere.
But even in the private virtualized environments, where we once had this presumption of isolation between virtual machines, these vulnerabilities actually bridge that gap between those machines, and it allows exploits in between what we've formerly thought were isolated environments within a virtualized stack. So to Bradford's point, this is a time where we have to think even more clearly about the standard best practices of security. And you make a very valid point there, Bradford. If it doesn't need to be connected, don't connect it. How many folks just plug it into the LAN port because that's what you do? There's an RJ45 here, we're going to plug it in. Guess what? It gets a DHCP address, it gets a gateway, it has internet access now.
Okay, hang on for a second on that, because this is where I want to bring Derek in. Derek, you still work for a manufacturer. You work for Extron. There are several programs out there. You guys are not alone in this, where you can monitor, you can maintain, you can sometimes remotely control virtual class or virtually every classroom on a campus. To do that, though, you need the internet. So yes, Bradford says if it doesn't need to be plugged into the internet, don't. But to use certain functionalities of certain products, you have to.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's a big difference in our industry, I think, between the way devices communicate. And so, whereas Meltdown and Spectre have various exploits that can be used at the hardware level, there's also some that can be exploited from the operating system level as well. So I agree with what Bradford said earlier. It's really an architectural issue. Mm-hmm. But one of the, I think we talked before in the show that I think, and you guys think as well, that good security kind of comes in layers. And so, at least when we're thinking about like Global Viewer Enterprise at Extron, and you're monitoring classrooms or certain parts of your enterprise, facilities, etc., being able to do that using an encrypted connection is like another step up, right? It's like another rung up in the ladder. And we've been fortunate enough to have an architecture that supports that, and that gives us gives you a little more comfort. There's one thing you can have confidence in, as far as the how the products are made. Even outside of our industry, it's really hard. These exploits that you need to take advantage of these devices are things that nation states do. And they're very complex on some level. Some of them are probably easier and more accessible, but you got to remember, the folks that needed to know about this already knew about it, in my opinion. So now that the rest of us know, we're grateful for that knowledge. But
Derek, that's a good point. It's not some kid in his parents' basement eating Cheetos in his underwear playing video games.
No,
right?
Probably not in this case.
It's a nation state.
It's zone for sure. Okay?
Right.
Well, I do want to ask Derek a quick question. I apologize, don't know your products as well as I know my previous employers. Are you able to put a server locally. So, for instance, AMX's RMS software, you can actually put a server on campus that's not connected to the internet. Is that something that is available in your software?
Yes, it is. And I'll give you two exceptions to where it may not be. The first thing is for Global View Enterprise, that is an on-premise product for us. So we kind of imagine that as being within a company's infrastructure. That's how we can have conceived it, and that's how it gets deployed, I would say, most of the time. You got to remember, too, that I'll talk a little about Extron. I don't know that every other manufacturer has the same constraints, but in this day and age of creating software applications, some of those applications, the runtimes of them require the development environment to go out and validate that the thing that was developed is actually a trusted developer. So for us, we use certificate-based secure communications, and we will re-enable or activate new certificates and deprecate old certificates and ciphers. So as we do software updates, the one exception I would say is there are times when either the desktop software or the server software will have to go out to the network, or a network administrator will need to provide a way for those to be either validated or accepted so that the products will run correctly.
So it needs to call home every so often, but it doesn't need to call home every minute.
Yeah, it doesn't need to call home to Extron. It may need to call home to Microsoft or Symantec or whatever the certificate signing authority is that Extron would use, versus also client side, they can install certificates as well. It just gets away from the Spectre and Meltdown thing a little bit, but in some ways it's just, like I said, it's like one of those stair-step things about good security kind of comes in layers. And
I also think there's no such thing as a good security answer, because there'll be a new question tomorrow.
Yeah.
It just reiterates the fact that nothing, people ask me this all the time. How do I keep my data safe? Right? You can't keep it 100% safe. It's not possible in this day and age, right? But we can take best steps to mitigate the risk, to prevent unwanted access, to prevent data loss and data theft. However, nothing is 100%. If somebody wants it bad enough, they're going to get it. And with this particular exploit, we're talking about a lot of software layer stuff, but these exploits bypass a lot of those software layers. It bypasses a lot of those certificates and the encryption capabilities and whatnot, because it's happening at the architectural level.
Correct.
We got to take all those steps on the software side. And then unfortunately, we have to lay it in the hands of the manufacturers that are building the processors that we're using, which is scary. It's scary that we don't have any control of that. But I think the big takeaway here is it a problem? Yes, it is. What is the risk? Well, that depends on who you are and the value of the data that you have, and whether or not you're a potential target for someone who, one, has the desire, and two, the capability to utilize one of these exploits.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we feel that we don't have any product vulnerabilities with respect to Meltdown and Spectre. We actually have published that on our website.
That's excellent.
/product security. We have a statement there that we've posted. But, if customers have questions, we do a lot of testing, which I'm sure a lot of the manufacturers do. And so, if there's scenarios or things that, need to be sort of done in a proof of concept phase or just for validation, those are things that most modern manufacturers have to do anyways as part of their QA processes and whatnot. But, we're not alone. We're not the only industry that needs to do it. But
oh, Lord, no.
No, not at all.
All of us.
But it's good to know that I know at Extron that's what we do. And I'm pretty sure that other manufacturers probably take the same steps.
And there's a lot of devices out there, not to mislead people. There's a lot of devices that don't use some of the architectures we're talking about. They're built on completely different platforms that aren't affected by this. And that may be what you're alluding to here, Derek, with the Extron product. But definitely the PC side, the Apple side,
the phone side.
The phones, there's a lot of, well, in the phones mostly because the PBXs, the VoIP PBXs are a lot of Intel and AMD driven devices. So,
all right, enough doom and gloom for one day. We'll move on to our next story. Derek's company Extron came out with their global scripter, Extron Global Scripter, quote unquote. Extron Global Scripter is harnesses the dynamic power and intuitive nature of the Python programming language. Derek, I'm going to start with you on this. We said this when we did the story on AV Week. I have been aware of this for about 2 or 3 years now. You said that you guys have been working on this for 5 or 6 years, and some of your products have already got it. First of all, first question is why did you go down the road of Python programming for your control and automation platform?
I think there are a lot of choices we could make, but we wanted to make sure we chose a kind of a modern, very accessible, very extensible programming environment that would allow us to both be able to use the same platform that we have as part of our product line to support both configuration and programming workflows. Because Extron has a long legacy in configured systems, and we've certainly taken that to a what I believe is probably the upper echelons of what is possible in configuration. But there are people who just like to program, and being able to make your programs extensible, and for Extron, being able to concentrate all of our development around a single development language is also very helpful, because it allows us to be able to do a better job of providing the kind of support that we need to do for both the product side, but also on the customer side. So that's why Python was a big factor. It's a very popular language. It's very easily readable and editable. All of us could sit down and look at some code, and we could pretty much figure out what's going on, especially in the way that we've been training our certified programmers to use and deploy it every day.
Yeah. Michael, I want to bring you on this from an IT standpoint. A program language like Python, as Derek said, is more accessible. It from my opinion is more mainstream than some of the proprietary stuff. How big of a deal is that? The fact that it's more in line with a computer, like a computer scientist can go to school and learn Python. They can go to school and learn Java and Lua and all these.
It's a breath of fresh air, to be honest. I mean, the AV industry has been plagued for a long time with a lot of proprietary controls, a lot of proprietary languages, proprietary ways of doing things. And I've been advocating for a long time that we need to standardize on openly available tools and resources and standards that the IT industry has already put in place, right? It's been well established. It's much bigger than the AV industry. And kudos to Extron for jumping on board and using a language that is so widely adopted, something that we can actually do something with, that we can expand upon, that we can grow with. I think it's a great thing.
All right, Mr. Bradford. Bradford has had experience making different systems talk together
Yes.
in various locations. Does this help at all, the fact that it's written in Python, or does it not matter in the fact that it's a more neutral scripting language?
Actually, it helps a lot, in my opinion. Other people have used Lua as their scripting language. Also, manufacturers have had their proprietary scripting languages, and the challenge has been you need a AMX, a Crestron, a take your pick, an Extron certified programmer. Now you can call, the local college or the local high school and go, hey, who's your best Python programmer? And they can do the programming for you. It's also because of the inherent APIs that are available for Python, automated programming interfaces, you're able to extend it quite a bit. I've done some stuff where Python devices are talking to Lua devices, which are talking to AMX devices, and RA grade dimming systems and ETC dimming systems, and it all works perfectly happy. So I actually think it's a very good move. I think Python is a great language. It's, after we did AV Week, I went out to my O'Reilly bookshelf and put a Python book in there. And I think at this point I can now either launch nuclear missiles, wait up, that's not a good joke anymore, or possibly change the channel on my TV.
No, it's not a good joke anymore.
Unfortunately, there's not an API to tie into the emergency alert system. That's still too archaic.
Give Congress time; they'll come up with it. Real quickly, one thing that when I ran a programming house for a little bit. One thing that I always found challenging was getting several programmers to work on the exact same program at the time, especially in proprietary, because there was nothing like GitHub. And if you're not familiar with what GitHub is a repository where Michael can program something, Derek can program something, Bradford can program something, and then I can program all the same program, and I can write a different piece and put it into GitHub, and the three gentlemen can write something else and put it in GitHub, and we can all have one thing. You can't necessarily do that with a proprietary system. With GitHub, though, and with a programming language like Lua or like Python, you can do that. Am I incorrect in that, Bradford?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
So for many of the programming languages, you can call external functions, and you can use GitHub or an other source control system, because GitHub just happens to be an open source one.
Yeah.
There's Perforce, there's SCN, there's all sorts of ones. So yes, you can, because I've done it. You write, this person's working on the lighting control for the room. They write that, and then they call it as a function from the other software.
Okay.
The fact that the Python coding environments have better revision control tools built in is a move, but revision control and multiple pieces is just a way of how you architect your base code, and it can be supported any multiple ways.
All right, very good. All right, guys, that is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Bradford Ben, how do people find you?
I'm usually hanging out at the AVNation website at avnation.tv, or I'm making fun of Tim on the Twitters and his lowly bears. So follow me at Bradford Ben on Twitter. Don't bother following Tim.
I will point out he did not say my lowly blues. So
Not this time, anyways.
not this time.
It's
Derek,
All-Star break.
Derek, thank you so much for joining us, sir. How do people find you or Extron?
Just at extron.com, and you can reach me at djonkus@extron.com. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And last but not least, my buddy Michael, how do people find you, sir?
At Michael Drainer on Twitter and drainertechnologies.com.
All right, very good. Bradford's right. Don't follow me on the Twitters, but go by the website, avnation.tv. avnation.tv. Bradford has done a lot of work there, so check that out. Also, we are wrapping or starting out our annual audience survey, so take time to give us 5 or 6 minutes and let us know where you are in the industry so we can make AVNation better. Also, check out our underwriters. These are the folks who support us financially and help us do what we do, including bringing you this program and bringing you Integrated Systems Europe, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks. Extron is one of those, and we thank them for their support and all of our underwriters. So check all of that out and more at avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This has been ITAV.